Hey everybody, interesting chat today as we talk all things cloud and cloud migration with a true insider in the industry from VAI. Kevin, how are you?
All right, doing well. How are you, Evan?
I'm good. Just enjoying our last weeks of summer here in Boston. Maybe introduce yourself and the mission at VAI and a little bit about your bio and background to the current day as CIO.
Sure. Well, first, I'm the CIO of VAI. VAI is Vomitech Associates Inc., but we go by brand wise as VAI. We are an ERP software vendor, so we offer our own ERP software. We're in the mix with the typical usual suspects. The few dozens of us that are usually out there. That's We've been doing this since. I think 47 years now. So
Wow.
we've been around for quite a bit. And from the standpoint of the markets, it's North America is most of it. Canada, U.S., Central America, Caribbean, but we do have customers scattered all around the world, Middle East, and over in oceanic areas, and so on. Markets are usually distributors, manufacturers, and we have a couple of specialties, which is pharmaceuticals and food processing. Both of those are unique, both regulated by the FDA, so there's some similarities between the two. Also, I guess from the standpoint of, we're usually mid-market, meaning 50 to 500 million is probably the average size, but we have smaller than that, and plus we have multi-billion dollars up to about 10 or 15 billion. So we run the mix, see a lot. The other aspect also is back, I guess, during the economic meltdown in 2007 or so, we saw, things were different. When the economy goes bad, you see a lot of startups. So we started our cloud business back in 2009. So it was SaaS based because SaaS back then, you didn't have to show it on your books. So it was beneficial for a lot of them. Today you do have to show it as debt, but back then you didn't. So, but yeah, we got into the cloud business back then, evolved it. We grew from a first generation into a second generation. Now we're actually planning on our third generation. It just never stops. But and we've moved from SaaS to platform as a service, so we offer both now, depending on the needs of users and so on. So and things have been very, very busy, as with everybody out there. What's going on right now keeps us very busy in the world.
Yeah, that's a great story. Great to hear. And what's going on is, everyone has moved or is moving to the cloud, including ERP, which seems like the last bastion of
Uh,
customer
yes.
premises kind of applications. Um, One, why has it been slower than maybe other applications?
Uh,
And what's happening now as we speak in terms of that migration?
yeah, I guess sometimes years ago you heard the word, uh, ERP customers, and they tend to be conservative in IT. Some used to refer to them as laggards, the tail end of the innovation model. But it's just based on ERP. It runs everybody's businesses. Without it, it's the heart and brains of everything in a business. So it's people have to be sure of things. And, it was easy in the early days of cloud. Yes, we had maybe small customers on there, and if it's, the provisioning is something that, I guess wasn't mature back then for a lot of people to be able to do it. But also, it's the line of business. You cannot have downtime, and, the cloud. And if you go back to the early 2000s, when you had ASPs and the evolution of the whole cloud, I mean, it started back in the late 90s. So, but it really didn't hit its stride for a lot of applications. You had payroll, you had human resources. Those were some of the early adopters. Email, obviously, is a big one that's cloud-based. But, it took time to move up to the bigger applications. But now I think everybody is comfortable. They see the cloud providers that are out there. There's reputations out there. And even when you see instances in the cloud, there's plans for how people recover quickly. So it alleviates a lot of any of the concerns that people used to have, say, 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. And is it mainly still a cost benefit analysis in terms of moving to the cloud, or I think probably other advantages? What do you
Uh,
see in terms of many
it's
benefits?
it's expanded. I mean, initially it was that way when you looked at, say, SaaS or PaaS, or
Mhm.
even if you're doing infrastructure as a service. Now, big driver probably is more at the forefront is people's minds is security. from the standpoint, what can they do for security, what they can do for availability. One of our offerings always include high availability, multiple data centers, but there's the security aspect too. One of our most recent additions when we upgraded our SANs was quantum safe encryption. So trying to plan in advance. These are, it's very difficult, to deploy a lot of the more advanced software today. It's not, 30 years ago, you bought one server, you loaded it up, you might have connected some PCs or terminals, and that was it. They're complicated, they're multi-layered. Plus, there's the security aspects of it. It is to integrate to so many other platforms now. It's so commonplace for hybrid applications, whether you're on premise or in the cloud, you're going out to a service, a taxing service, various other services that you might be interfacing, marketing applications, things like that. So it kind of lends itself now to be in the cloud already, with connections and pipes, and based on the data center, you might have dark fiber between them or so on. But people see that, if they had to build this all themselves, it costs a lot of money, to maintain a cloud and to build a cloud. Even if, if you're a Citibank or you're one of these big institutions, yes, they're going to have their own private cloud. But even the big guys, the Microsofts, they use their own cloud. They use other clouds. They have to support everything out there. So everybody is, of the mindset that, the cloud is part of the future. With the most recent, say past couple of years where AI just took off. To deploy AI yourself, it's much easier to connect to a cloud instance of AI. You can grow into it gradually instead of having to sit there and deploy a lot of servers and figure everything out yourself. You gain the benefit of other people's experience.
Yes, and yet there, still mistakes and roadblocks and challenges in migrating to the cloud. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see companies make?
Well, I guess first and foremost, and you'll have probably heard this a lot, is understanding and having good plan and project teams. Having people, and people with responsibilities and realistic expectations from the standpoint people don't understand whether they're deploying a new ERP on premise or in the cloud. There's resources. If you're using your existing resources, where does that time come from? Do you add people temporarily? Is there a consulting firm involved? But either way, in the end, you have to be able to run it and operate it yourself. So that's probably the one thing is plan. Having people understand the plan, prepare. Obviously, it's also dependent on how well they know and what the reason they're moving to a new system is. What deficiencies are you trying to replace? And what additions are you augmenting? Obviously, anything that you move to, you wouldn't move to if it wasn't substantially better and have substantial upgrading capabilities. So that's all of that taken into account. Is more of it, the human factor probably tends to be the one thing that that you have to spend the most amount of attention on. Yes, there's new technology to potentially learn, but if you're moving to the cloud, many times the requirement to know that new technology hopefully is all being taken care of by the cloud provider, and that you can get onto with business.
Yeah, well, that would be nice, getting on with business. And you mentioned cloud, can make a company more secure. It can also open up new threats and new vulnerabilities that have been unknown in the past. How do you see that evolving? Because, a lot of cloud security vendors out there trying to fix various challenges.
Yes, you're right. And the first thing we always say to our customers, is just because you move to the cloud, that doesn't mean your local network security and management goes away. It's just as important as ever. You still need to maintain, up-to-date firewalls. You still have to patch your systems, because we do see for our customers that are in our cloud, the attack vector has always been their network. We block at the edge, but we've had customers who have been hit with ransomware attacks and so on. And we have, obviously, we spend a lot of money and we do a lot of layers of security to be able to block that. But yes, that is, and obviously clouds are under attack all the time. Everybody's under attack. I mean, people are probing, port knocking every day. I mean, it goes back to the first days of the internet. In the 90s, that people were always probing and prying. So you want to make sure that you've got vendors who keep all their equipment up to date, security, patching. We monitor CVEs and KEVs on a daily basis. We have various different companies and people we deal with from a security standpoint, whether it's legal, whether it's risk analysis, whether it's scanning, vulnerability scanning. All of that has to be done on an ongoing basis. We're doing it all the time. So
yeah, the rest of the weary for sure. We have whole conferences about it, including Black
yeah.
Hat, which is happening this week. Um, and the promise of the cloud, of course, is scalability, which is amazing to see in action. But there's also a lot of cloud sprawl and overspend on cloud computing. The whole category of companies and FinOps, just looking at financial spending on the cloud. How do you think about managing costs in the cloud and not letting
Uh,
it get out of control as well?
Yes, that can be, and we see it more with our install base, since our cloud only hosts our software.
Right,
We're not hosting email or anything like that. So the spend limit on us is predictable. It's known,
right.
and we don't do metered billing in our instance because it is ERP. You'll see more of those. You'll see a lot of other options maybe in the business world, ERP wise, where metered billing might not make sense for someone who might have 5,000 employees or something like that. You will get a negotiated contract price and so on and so forth. But yes, there is many benefits to the cloud from the standpoint. One of the biggest uses of the cloud is software development. You don't need to buy your own equipment to write software. If you're people who are doing AI programming now, they're not buying equipment; they're jumping on a cloud account. So you will see, if you don't control, any kind of developers or things like that, yeah, there can be that type of sprawl. You can also we see with our customers, like the marketing department, they might want to connect to this cloud. The payables or purchasing or whatever might want to connect to various other clouds, interfacing to. So somebody has to just have an understanding, like you said, not to sprawl and not to keep, because it's so easily, integratable now, that yes, you can have a lot of people going and connecting to a lot of different clouds. If you're standing up your own cloud, yes, you can always have to pay attention to who's spinning up what and how many instances. And there's still software charges to who's ever hosting the cloud behind the scenes, whether it's virtualization software and so on. So,
Got it. Yeah. And so, once you're in a cloud environment, I guess you've reached nirvana, but you still have challenges as a CIO. What are some of the day-to-day challenges you see your customers navigating, and yourself? What do you kind of continually have to overcome?
Yeah, like when you said nirvana. Well, in the computer world, and this, goes back to even software development and the CEO here talking to some other CEOs, competitors and so on. It never ends. If you're developing software, it's just cycles. It's which cycle you're in. In the cloud, building the cloud, it's the same thing. It never ends. We finished this project. I just finished the SAN project, updating, to new Flash SANs in there. But we're on to the next and the next and the next. It just keeps going. And the security aspect is a daily thing. It's something that has to be in your mind daily now. It used to be, even 5 years ago, an IT director, a CIO, all right, that was just one of the things they dealt with, maybe quarterly or something like that. But security is something that, you really have to pay attention to, in all aspects. There's edge, perimeter, there's the various different, there's email, there's various different things you have to secure up. So, you have to stay in front of everything. You just have to know that, there's not going to be, a downtime where, we can cruise for a while. That just, the business world today is, it's, constantly changing, and, you don't want to be the ones that are trying to keep up. You want to try to be the ones that are at least with the pack or ahead of the pack.
Got it. Well, that sounds like you're staying ahead of the pack. Cloud ERP is I guess the way ERP is now being done. Do you see the market continue to consolidate, steady state? You got the big giants still in the ERP space seem to be still there. But How do you see this market evolving
I
over the
would
next couple of
say
years?
you're pretty accurate on steady state.
Yeah,
So, the big guys are the big guys. We
yeah,
know them. We talk to each other. We see each other at events and things like that. There's always going to be a little movement around from, say, who owns what company and for what reason, because there's always other financial reasons behind
right.
who owns different companies. But I think all the consolidation in the ERP world has pretty much happened, in the past. At one point there was probably, what would be called business management software back in the day, where, there might have been, hundreds or thousands in a geo area that you might be picking from. I mean, there still are thousands of ERP vendors globally. I mean, there's an ERP vendor in Uruguay that services the Uruguay market. There's different ones in Southeast Asia and others. I mean, they do exist. Not everybody's using some of the big names that are out there. So, but from the standpoint of, say our North American market that we see, it's a pretty steady amount of, competitors that we're seeing out there.
Yeah, I think that's probably to be expected. And when it comes to AI, there's a lot of questions, concerns in some cases about impact on the IT workforce and, autonomous IT and running networks without people. Um, what's your view on, AI, Gen AI, and its impact on your job and your team's job over time? Or do you see it as an opportunity, as a challenge to, the workforce? Are people, in your position, maybe your IT practitioners concerned
Um,
by this trend?
well, it is something that's an enhancement. It is something to be
Mm,
concerned, or actually you have to pay attention and, and also have realistic expectations.
mm,
We had some basic AI going back to 2016, the original IBM Watson code.
mm,
So it was more machine learning, and, AI does go back, decades. But with technology and progress, there's a lot of things that happen. A long, long time ago, before we were born, there was a job profession called the computer, and it was a human being computing. And eventually, machines came along and replaced them. And now there's more people having to support those computers than there ever was back then. So AI is going to come around. Yes, there's going to be certain jobs, that it's going to replace, or augment. But there's going to be other work that has to be done too. Everybody on their task, I'm sure you have plenty of things that you can't get to in a given day. So if you can have AI help you go after that, it's going to be beneficial. We working with it. In fact, I was just on an AI call prior to this. We have a variety of different projects going on. Like I said, we've had some, like I would call like a Watson Gen 1 was their original AI. And now they have Watson X, which is, large language model and everything else and all that. You have to know where it's going to be beneficial, what it's useful for. Yes, from the standpoint of a developer, it's an incredibly good tool to speed things up. It's also good for code analysis. So there's a lot of immediate things where somebody might say, I don't want AI generated code running my business. Okay, but you might want AI code. You might want AI to check the security of your code or the feature and efficiency and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different areas that can be looked at. A lot of what you see in the media is, originally was all about content creation, media, things like that, which is just phenomenal at. And that's where areas where there's a lot of concern, the music industry, arts, and so on. And that's going to probably require some level of control and some level of, I don't know if it would be regulation, but at least agreement as to how far something can go in that regards. When it gets to the business world, it's usually looked at it more as efficiencies and automation. Everybody's always looking for more efficiencies, more automations, either to compete. If you're a little guy and you want to compete against the big guy, it could be an equalizer. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. If you're, some of the bigger companies out there, they can get to use it for things that, they never got around to, or, the finance world has been looking at it for many different ways of how, in fact, I was reading a story earlier today, it's different than working in the science world because science is atoms and molecules, but in the finance world, it's still bits and bytes. It's a little bit more easier, predictable models that you can actually use. So, it's here, it's not going to go away, but it's also, whenever new technology hits, people have great expectations, and then eventually over time they just get used to it, and it just, oh, okay, this is just part of the way it is now.
Yeah,
We're not
we'll
there
have
yet,
to
but it
learn
will
to
come.
live to coexist, I think, is
Yep.
what we'll have to do. Well, very nice chatting. Really great update. I learned a lot, and thanks for joining. Really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yes. Very nice talking to you, Evan.
And thanks
Good
everyone
time.
for listening and
Yep.
watching, sharing, and check out our new TV show, TechImpact.tv, now on Bloomberg and Fox Business. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.